All right, today we're going to dig into one of the most famous and, honestly, most misunderstood phrases out there: survival of the fittest. I mean, we all think we know exactly what it means, but what if we've got it completely fundamentally wrong?
I mean, listen to this quote. It's a jungle out there. I just happen to be the apex predator. This is the kind of thinking we see everywhere, right? From the boardroom to, the locker room. The whole idea that life is this brutal, zero-sum game, a contest where only the most aggressive, the most dominant get to the top. It's a really powerful and, let's be honest, a deeply ingrained way of seeing the world.
Okay, so we're diving into the apex predator myth. But here's the real question. Is that really how the world works? Is being the biggest, the most ruthless, is that truly the best path to long-term success? Well, let's put that whole myth to the test.
So let's start with a quick question for you. When you hear the phrase survival of the fittest, who do you think of? Who coined it? Now, if you're like most of us, chances are one name pops into your head: Charles Darwin, the father of evolution himself. But, well, that's not quite the full story.
And here's the big reveal. The phrase didn't even come from biology, not at all. It was actually coined by an economist and philosopher, a guy named Herbert Spencer, and he used it to justify the rough-and-tumble capitalism of the Victorian era. Darwin, well, he adopted the phrase later on, but he actually came to regret it because it caused so much confusion. Now, knowing that it came from economics, not biology, that changes the whole picture, doesn't it?
Okay, so this really gets to the core of the misunderstanding. In biology, fitness has absolutely nothing to do with being the strongest or the most dominant. It's all about an organism's ability to fit in with its environment. Think of it like a jigsaw puzzle, right? The fittest piece isn't the biggest one, it's the one that fits perfectly into the spot it's in. So real fitness, it's all about adaptability.
Now, to really see what this looks like in the real world, I want to tell you a story. It's a tale of two troops. We're going to head to a remote island, Isla de la Sombra, which was home to a really interesting species of primate. So on this island, researchers found these two totally different macaque societies living side by side. You had the valley troop living in this lush, abundant paradise, led by this huge, aggressive alpha male named Titan. And then you had the ridge troop, who were just scraping by on these harsh, windy cliffs, led by a cooperative matriarch, Cassandra. I mean, two completely different approaches to survival. So let's zoom in on the valley troop for a second. Their whole world was run by this one alpha, Titan. He was about 20% bigger than the other males, just a perfect example of that apex predator myth we were talking about. And look, in their world, where food was everywhere, his strategy worked. He used pure intimidation to hoard resources, to take whatever he wanted. Their society was basically a dictatorship built on fear and violence.
Now, in complete contrast, you have the ridge troop. Life for them was hard. They lived on these really challenging lands, and you know what? Dominance was totally useless up there because there was nothing to take by force anyway. So they had to survive through cooperation. They shared information, they vocalized to tell each other where food was, and get this, they even supported their weakest members. There was this one crippled male who couldn't fight at all, but he had this incredible memory for where to find water. He wasn't strong, but he was absolutely essential to the group.
So when the rains failed, this is where everything changes. I mean, on the surface, the valley troop looked like the clear winners, right? They were bigger, stronger, living in a total paradise. But then the environment shifted. A massive drought, driven by El Niño, hit the island in '76, and it put both of these strategies to the ultimate test.
But then, the drought arrived. And we're talking 18 months with not a single drop of rain. The paradise in the valley just vanished. The harsh cliffs got even more unforgiving. This was it. This was the moment of truth.
So, for the valley troop, the collapse was swift and it was brutal. First, their paradise vanished as the fig trees just withered and died. And Titan's one and only strategy, brute force, well, it was suddenly useless. I mean, you can't intimidate a dead tree. Aggression doesn't work when there's nothing left to take. So their whole society, which was built on fear, just fractured. They turned on each other. And you know who starved first? The largest males. The whole troop was gone, wiped out by disease and infighting in less than a year.
But what about the so-called weak ridge troop? Well, their food sources vanished too. But their response couldn't have been more different. Cassandra, the matriarch, used the troop's collective memory to lead them somewhere new, the tidal pools. And there, they innovated.
They actually learned to use stones as tools to crack open oysters. They figured out a whole new food source. And because their entire society was built on cooperation, they shared that knowledge, they shared the food, and they survived.
And this brings us to the true meaning of fitness. You see, the ridge troops' survival wasn't just luck. It was a direct result of how their society was built. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, why adaptation always triumphs over aggression.
So here's the core lesson, laid out plain and simple. Sure, aggression, the Valley Troops' whole strategy, it looks great in a stable world. It seems powerful, but the moment a crisis hits, it's incredibly brittle. It just shatters. The things that make you resilient, the traits that lead to long-term survival, are cooperation and adaptability.
And this is the real meaning behind survival of the fittest. It's not about the survival of the strongest. It is the survival of the most adaptable. It has nothing to do with who can crush the competition right now. It's all about who can change and adapt to meet whatever challenges tomorrow brings.
So, what was the rich troops' winning strategy? What made them so fit? It wasn't brute force. No. It was things like cognitive flexibility, being able to think in new ways. It was their collective memory. It was innovation. Using tools. It was sharing information and providing mutual support. These are the real building blocks of fitness.
Okay, so that's a pretty powerful story about some monkeys, right? But what does it have to do with us? Well, let's take this exact lesson from the jungle and bring it right into the modern boardroom.
And the parallels are kind of shocking, aren't they? We see these two models everywhere in our own world. On one hand, you have the Titan Empire. It's that rigid, top-down hierarchy built on fear, where information and resources are hoarded at the top. And yeah, it can look really powerful when times are good, but on the other hand, you have the Cassandra ecosystem, a cooperative network built on trust, where knowledge is shared. And that model is just so much more resilient and adaptive when, inevitably, the crisis hits.
When you boil it all down, it's this simple. Aggression is metabolically expensive. It just costs too much. It burns energy, it destroys trust, it leaves you isolated. But alliances, cooperation, trust, those are long-term assets. They are the things that build true resilience and create success that can actually last.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In your own world, your job, your community, your life, which model are you building? Are you building an empire based on dominance, or are you cultivating an ecosystem based on cooperation? Because the answer to that question, well, it just might determine your ability to survive the next big drought, whatever form it takes.
Please like and subscribe.